Phil Gregory is our guest today at my table. He's a South African based country singer songwriter. We are talking about where he's from, what he's doing, and of course his latest single by the name of Moving On. Phil, would you kindly just introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi, I'm Phil Gregory. I'm a 66-year-old singer-songwriter, retired, that's lived and worked in South Africa for the last 14, 15 years. I live in Lanseria when I'm in South Africa, and I live around the south coast of England when I'm in the UK, which is where I spend half of my time. I was born here in the UK in what was then the biggest or largest council house estate in Europe, a place called Lee Park, which is very close to Portsmouth, again on the south coast. I was born in the 50s. One of five, so I have four siblings, two older sisters, one younger sister, and one younger brother. I'm married to a beautiful lady. Her name's Jenny. We've got three kids. We've got six grandchildren and two great grandchildren. We're surrounded by family in this area. When we're not in South Africa, we're here with the family. So that's a little bit about me.
Phil, when and where did you discover music?
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but I recognise the fact that I adored music from a very early age, and I was surrounded by music in particularly my mother's family, where there were numerous piano players. Not very good ones, a bit of pub players, if you know what I mean. But nevertheless, they could knock out a tune, and so there were always people playing the piano and singing, and surrounded by it, and I loved it. So kind of from an early age, I always had a real interest in music, and my mum and dad were great Jim Reeves fans, so kind of country music was around in those early days, though I didn't really recognise Jim Reeves as being a country star, but he was massive in South Africa, of course, and before he was ever really famous elsewhere in the world. So, yeah, ironically, music was around me all the time. The radio was on all the time. My older sisters were listening to the Beatles, and I loved the Beatles because I loved the melodies. So, but I was told as a kid that I was, pretty much couldn't sing, to be honest with you, which is interesting. I never made the school choir. They put me in the brass band on the triangle or something, I think. So for my sins, but I kind of proved them wrong, I guess. But so I really got into kind of bands and playing in bands and singing in bands during my early 20s, and I wanted to make a career of it.
Phil, except for the triangle, what instrument do you play?
I play guitar a little bit, but I don't play particularly well, if I'm honest with you. I've always been impatient around my music, and I always imagined melodies and things in my head long before I could play them well enough to record them. So I tend to rely on real musicians to play my stuff. Though I can knock out a little tune on the guitar. So, and I played bass guitar for quite a long time, but never very well, never well enough in my view to record them myself. So yeah, I kind of imagine melodies in my head, and I these days write more and more lyrics than I ever did. So because I have the time, I guess, and I have a lot of experience and of life, so which is just then put onto paper.
Let's just chat about your EP, which is out with the name of 22 Not Out, and it's got nothing to do with cricket.
Yeah, so 22 Not Out was never going to be the title of the EP, but this EP has taken, I don't know, almost 18 months to be out there, 18 months after it should have been out there, because of pandemic, travel bans, lockdowns, all those good things that saw me either in the wrong place or at the wrong time, and unable to finish these tracks. So 22 Not Out was just a kind of a cryptic note that says, look, we've made it to the year 2022, and we've survived, some of us, not all of us. So for the unfortunate people that really suffered during the pandemic, my heart goes out to them. But this was just a reflection of making it to 2022 and getting back to some semblance of normality, with our lives, and hoping that this EP would bring a little bit of fun and enjoyment to the people that listen to it. And so, yeah, that's what the 22 Not Out's all about. It was never going to be called that, but it is.
I just want to congratulate you because you are a very brave man. You have actually released a full-length album in 2020 called Good Intentions.
Yeah, it was interesting. It did extremely well in South Africa, and it was, it's fantastic to see people enjoying it. It was the first thing the first thing I'd released for over 30 years. So the last time I released an album was back in the 80s. I was a long time away from it, so it was kind of a retirement dream. One of those things I said, I want to get back to it. I'm going to do it, and I want it to be a country album. So Good Intentions is, if you haven't listened to it, go and have a listen.
We are having a marvelous chat to Phil Gregory, a British-born, South African-based country singer-songwriter. And it's quite clear that Phil takes any issues head on because he returns with a long-awaited EP by the name of 22 Not Out, featuring this first single, Movin On. Phil, what inspired Movin On?
The inspiration was me overhearing a conversation that a young lady was having with her friends, quite a loud conversation, when she was talking about the fact that her boyfriend, lover, partner, I'm not sure what it was, but had left her, had told her that he was no longer in love with her. He couldn't live with the lie. He was moving on with his life. However, and this was the bit that she was becoming pretty angry about, this guy had apparently started following her on Facebook and Instagram and basically keeping tabs on her and showing lots of interest and keeping her dangling. So he'd moved on, but he wasn't allowing her to move on. So that just kind of struck a chord with me, and I thought, oh, well, then we'll imagine the rest. So this was more about the reaction of somebody that's been told that their partner doesn't want to be with them anymore. They're moving on, but they're being restricted from moving on themselves. So yeah, so it was inspired by me being nosy and overhearing somebody's conversation, which was quite loud in fairness. So, if you're going to have those conversations, then you need to either keep them to yourself or expect people like me to make a song out of it.
Phil, I'm going to quote what she actually said. What a cheek. My partner has left me because they say they don't love me and can't live a lie. But then they start following me on Instagram, interested in everything I'm doing. It's as if they have moved on, but don't want me to. And unfortunately, with social media, someone can dictate your life without even being near you.
I don't know. Sometimes I'm torn between being a fan and not being a fan of social media. As you can imagine, I come from a generation that didn't really understand or doesn't really understand it, I guess, as much as I use it. But yeah, there's a lot of things played out on social media, which I find very odd. But I say that's maybe just from a generation that doesn't get it.
While we are on the subject of social media, on what platforms are you available?
Okay, so you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram. All the music's available on every one of the major platforms. So Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Deezer, whatever you use, you'll find it on there. So, yeah, go and have a listen. Go and have a look.
You may be something special, but you sure ain't what you seem. You can't break my